Michael Jordan's heart beat faster as he pulled into the parking lot of Lucky Larry's luxury cars. The summer sun made the shiny cars sparkle like diamonds, and Michael couldn't help but smile. After 3 years of saving money from his college, basketball games, and summer jobs, he was finally going to buy his very first car. "Your father would be so proud," his mom had said that morning, straightening his collar just like she used to do before school. "Just remember what I always tell you. A car is more than just a way to get around," Michael had finished for her, grinning. "It's a symbol of how far you've come." Now, walking between the rows of gleaming vehicles, Michael remembered how his dad used to point out nice cars on their way to church. "One day, son," he would say, "you'll have one of those, but you'll earn it the right way, with hard work and determination." Michael ran his hand along the hood of a silver Corvette. The metal felt cool under his fingers, but it wasn't quite right. His basketball coach always said Michael had a gift for knowing exactly what he wanted, whether it was the perfect shot or the right play to make. The same feeling guided him now as he moved deeper into the lot. That's when he saw it. Sitting in the back corner, partly hidden by a red sports car, was a black Mercedes-Benz. It wasn't the flashiest car in the lot, but something about it caught Michael's eye. The paint was so dark, it looked like a piece of the night sky had fallen to earth. The chrome trim gleamed like starlight. Michael's shoes crunched on the gravel as he walked around the car. Through the windows, he could see leather seats the color of warm coffee. The steering wheel had the same rich brown color, and the dashboard looked like something from a spaceship with all its dials and gauges. "This is it," he whispered to himself. "This is the one." He'd done his research. He knew the price range he could afford, and he'd brought all the paperwork his mom's friend at the bank had helped him prepare. 3 years of saving every penny, of taking extra jobs during summer breaks, of being careful with his basketball earnings. It was all about to pay off. A bell chimed as Michael pushed open the door to the dealership's office. The air conditioning hit him like a wave, and he straightened his tie. His mom had insisted he dress up for this. "When you're doing something important," she always said, "you show respect by looking your best." The office was empty, except for a woman typing at a computer behind the front desk. She looked up and started to smile, but something changed in her expression when she saw Michael. Her smile got smaller, more forced. "Can I help you?" she asked, her voice tight. "Yes, ma'am," Michael said politely, just like his mother had taught him. "I'm interested in the black Mercedes out back. I was hoping to discuss the price and maybe take it for a test drive." The woman's fingers hovered over her keyboard. "Do you have an appointment?" "No, ma'am, but I've brought all my paperwork." Michael patted his folder. "I'm ready to make a purchase today, if everything checks out." She pressed her lips together. "Let me get the manager." As she disappeared through a door marked Staff Only, Michael looked at the photos on the wall. They showed happy families standing next to their new cars, all of them smiling. He imagined his own photo up there, standing proud next to that beautiful black Mercedes. The door opened again, and heavy footsteps approached. Michael turned, ready to introduce himself with the firm handshake his father had taught him. But something in the manager's face made him pause. There was a look in the man's eyes that Michael had seen before, though never so clearly. It was the same look the security guard had given him last week when he'd been shopping at the fancy mall downtown. The same look he sometimes got when he walked into expensive restaurants. Michael took a deep breath and squared his shoulders. He was about to learn that sometimes the car you want isn't the journey you need to take. Through the office window, the black Mercedes caught the sunlight, sending a gleam across its perfect surface. But something didn't feel right. Something was about to change everything. And Michael Jordan had no idea that by the end of this day, he would make a decision that would shock not just this dealership, but the entire city. Larry Thompson had owned Lucky Larry's luxury cars for 20 years, and he had very specific ideas about what a real customer looked like. The young man standing in his office, wearing a tie that probably cost less than Larry's lunch, didn't fit that picture. "Son," Larry said, looking down at Michael over his reading glasses, "this is a luxury car dealership. The Mercedes you're asking about costs more than most people make in a year." Michael kept his voice steady, just like when reporters asked him tough questions after basketball games. "Yes, sir, I understand that. I've brought all my financial documents." "Listen," Larry cut him off, waving his hand. "Why don't you try the used car lot down on Peterson Street? They've got some nice cars, more in iller range." A familiar feeling crept into Michael's stomach. It was the same feeling he got when people underestimated him on the basketball court. But his mom's voice echoed in his head. "Never let anyone steal your dignity." "Sir," Michael said, opening his folder, "I can prove I have the money. I've been saving for 3 years. My credit score is excellent, and—" Larry's face turned red. "Are you deaf, boy? I said this isn't the place for you." The secretary behind the desk suddenly became very interested in her computer screen. Through the window, Michael could see a small crowd gathering. 2 guys with camera equipment were setting up outside, probably local news reporters doing a story about luxury car sales. "Mr. Thompson," Michael tried one more time, "I don't understand why you won't even look at my paperwork. Is there a reason you don't want to sell me a car?" Larry slammed his hand on the desk. The sound made the secretary jump. "You want to know the reason," he growled. "The reason is, I've been in this business longer than you've been alive. I know trouble when I see it. And you—" "Is it because I'm young?" Michael asked quietly. "Or is there another reason?" The office went silent. Even the humming air conditioner seemed to hold its breath. Larry stepped around his desk, getting so close Michael could smell his expensive cologne. "Are you calling me prejudiced, boy?" "I'm not calling you anything, sir. I'm just trying to buy a car." It happened fast. Larry's face twisted with anger. His arm pulled back, and his fist flew toward Michael's face. Years of basketball training kicked in. Michael's reflexes were lightning quick. He jerked his head back, but Larry's knuckles still grazed his chin. The secretary screamed. Outside, camera flashes exploded like lightning through the windows. 2 security guards burst through the door. But instead of grabbing Larry, they took hold of Michael's arms. "Get this troublemaker out of here," Larry shouted, straightening his tie with shaking hands. "I didn't do anything wrong," Michael said calmly, even as the guards started pushing him toward the door. His folder fell, scattering papers across the floor. 3 years of careful planning scattered like autumn leaves. "And don't come back." Larry's voice followed him into the parking lot. "I'll call the police if I ever see you here again." The news reporters were recording everything now. Michael recognized one of them from the sports section of the local news. She had interviewed him after the state championships last year. Her eyes widened with recognition. "Michael? Michael Jordan? What's going on? Do you want to make a statement?" But Michael just kept walking. His chin stung where Larry's punch had grazed it. But something else was burning inside him. It wasn't anger. It was something bigger. Something that felt like destiny. As he reached the end of the parking lot, Michael stopped and looked back. At the dealership, the black Mercedes sat there, sunlight dancing across its surface. But Michael wasn't seeing the car anymore. He was seeing something else. Something that only existed in his mind right now. But soon, a small smile crept across his face. The kind of smile that made his opponents nervous on the basketball court. The kind of smile that meant Michael Jordan had just seen his next move. The reporters were still calling his name, but Michael just kept walking. He had a long walk ahead of him and an even bigger plan forming in his mind. Larry Thompson had no idea what he had just started. But he was going to find out, and so was everyone else. The summer sun beat down on Michael's shoulders as he walked along Highway 41. Cars zoomed past, stirring up hot wind that ruffled his tie. His dress shoes, polished so carefully this morning, were already dusty from the road. His phone buzzed again, the 8th time in 20 minutes. This time, he checked it. 3 missed calls from his mom, 2 from his sister, and several text messages from his college teammates. The news was spreading fast. "Just saw you on Channel 5, read one message. "Man, you should sue that guy." Michael put the phone back in his pocket without responding. His mom had always told him that the most important conversations happen in your own heart first. Right now, his heart was having quite a discussion. A red pickup truck slowed beside him. "Hey," called the driver, a middle-aged man in a baseball cap. "Aren't you Michael Jordan? I saw what happened at the dealership. Want a ride?" "No, thank you, sir," Michael replied politely. "I need to walk for a while." As the truck pulled away, Michael remembered something his father had told him during their last conversation before he passed away. They had been watching a nature documentary about rivers, and his dad had said something that hadn't made sense. Until now. "You see, son," his father had said, "when a river hits a rock, it doesn't try to break through it. It finds a way around it and keeps flowing. And sometimes, that new path turns out better than the original one." A semi-truck thundered past, and Michael smiled at the memory. His dad would have known exactly what to do in this situation. Or maybe he already had taught Michael what to do through all those quiet lessons over the years. His phone buzzed again. This time it was Coach Williams from college. "Michael," the coach's voice was concerned. "I saw the news. Are you okay? Do you need a lawyer? I know some people who—" "I'm okay, Coach," Michael said. "Actually, I'm better than okay. I just need to ask you something. Remember that business class you taught last summer?" "Sure, the one about entrepreneurship? You were one of my best students. Why?" Michael watched a billboard for another car dealership pass by. "Do you still have those notes about starting a business? And maybe some contacts in the banking world?" There was a pause on the other end. Then Coach Williams laughed. "Michael Jordan, what are you planning?" "Something big, Coach. Something nobody's going to expect." After hanging up, Michael loosened his tie. The sun was starting to set, painting the sky in brilliant oranges and purples. He'd been walking for almost 2 hours, but his feet didn't hurt. His chin had stopped stinging where Larry's punch had grazed it. Instead, energy buzzed through his body like electricity. A city bus pulled up beside him, and the driver opened the door. "You shouldn't be walking out here, son. Hop in. No charge." Michael started to say no, but then he saw the advertisement on the side of the bus. It was for a local business course at the community college. The sign read, "Your future starts here." "Thank you," Michael said, climbing aboard. "I think this is exactly the ride I need." As the bus drove toward downtown, Michael pulled out his phone and opened the Notes app. At the top, he typed, "Steps to Success." Then he began to write, his fingers flying across the screen as the plan in his mind grew clearer and bigger. Larry Thompson thought he had won today. He thought he had put Michael Jordan in his place. But Larry was about to learn something that Michael's basketball opponents had learned long ago. Never underestimate someone who knows how to turn an obstacle into an opportunity. "They'll never see this coming," Michael whispered, watching the city lights begin to twinkle in the dusk. And for the first time since leaving the dealership, he broke into a full, genuine smile. The kind of smile that changed worlds. The next 6 weeks felt like a blur to Michael. While local TV stations kept replaying the video of him being thrown out of Lucky Larry's, he was busy turning his mom's dining room into a command center. "Michael," his mother said one morning, looking at the papers spread across her table, "you haven't touched your breakfast. What are all these numbers?" Michael looked up from a thick book titled Auto Dealership Management. Dark circles shadowed his eyes, but they sparkled with excitement. "These aren't just numbers, Mom. They're the future." Every day followed the same pattern. Michael woke up at 5 a.m. for basketball practice. He wasn't going to let his NBA dreams slip away. But by 8 a.m. he was diving into business books, meeting with Coach Williams's contacts, and making phone calls. The local news tried to get interviews, but Michael just smiled and said, "No comment." This drove the reporters crazy. They were used to Michael being open and friendly during basketball interviews. Now he was a mystery, and people love mysteries. "Did you see?" his sister asked one evening, pointing at the TV. "Larry's dealership is losing customers. People are mad about what he did to you." But Michael wasn't interested in Larry's problems. He was too busy learning everything he could about running a car dealership. He visited successful dealerships in other cities, taking notes on what made them special. He talked to happy customers and unhappy ones, learning what people really wanted when buying a car. One day, a sleek black car pulled up to his house. A woman in a business suit stepped out, carrying a briefcase. "Mr. Jordan," she said, "I'm Sarah Chen from First National Bank. Coach Williams said you wanted to discuss a business loan?" Michael straightened his tie, a new one he'd bought just for meetings like this. "Yes, ma'am. Thank you for coming. I have something big to show you." Inside, Michael pulled out a detailed business plan. He'd worked on it for weeks, getting help from his business professors and Coach Williams. Sarah's eyes got wider as she flipped through the pages. "This is impressive," she said, "but it's also risky. You're very young and—" "Ms. Chen," Michael interrupted politely, "do you know how many times people told me I was too young to play varsity basketball? Too young to dream of the NBA?" He smiled. "Being young just means I have more time to get it right." 2 hours later, Sarah left with the business plan tucked under her arm. A week later, the loan was approved. That's when the mysterious construction began. Right across the street from Lucky Larry's luxury cars, builders started clearing a huge lot. No one knew who bought the land. The construction workers wouldn't say who hired them. But every morning, Michael drove past in his sister's old car, watching the progress with that same quiet smile. Larry Thompson started asking questions. He called his friends at the city council, trying to find out who was behind the construction. But no one would tell him. The local news was full of speculation. "Mystery business coming to Auto Row," the headlines read. Some people thought it was a big national chain. Others believed it was a foreign car company opening their first American dealership. One evening, as the sun set behind the half-finished building, a reporter caught up with Michael as he left basketball practice. "Michael, people are saying you're behind the new construction across from Lucky Larry's. Is it true?" Michael adjusted his gym bag and gave her that famous smile. "You know what my mom always says? Sometimes the best move isn't the one everyone sees coming." The reporter looked confused. "What does that mean?" But Michael was already walking away, phone in hand, making another call. The sign for the new building was scheduled to arrive tomorrow, and he had one last detail to perfect. Larry Thompson was about to learn that some punches don't hurt. They inspire. The morning of the grand opening, a line of people stretched around the block. They weren't there to buy cars, at least not yet. They were there to see if the rumors were true. A massive red ribbon stretched across the entrance of the most modern car dealership anyone in town had ever seen. The building gleamed with glass and steel, but it was the sign that made everyone gasp. Jordan Motors, where every dream drives home. Michael stood in front of the crowd wearing a crisp black suit. Next to him, his mother dabbed tears from her eyes with a tissue. Coach Williams stood on his other side, beaming like a proud father. "I declare Jordan Motors officially open," Michael announced, cutting the ribbon with giant scissors. The crowd erupted in cheers. Camera flashes popped like fireworks. Across the street, Larry Thompson watched from his office window, his face pale. Inside Jordan Motors, people couldn't believe their eyes. The showroom floor sparkled like a diamond. But it wasn't just the shine that made this place special. It was the people. "Welcome to Jordan Motors," called out Maria, one of Michael's first hires. She had tried to get a job at Larry's 3 times, but was always turned away. Now, she was Jordan Motors' top salesperson. "Can I help you find your dream car?" asked James, a mechanic who used to work at Larry's but quit after seeing how Larry treated Michael. Now he ran Jordan Motors' service department. Michael had hired people from all backgrounds, giving chances to those who, like him, just needed someone to believe in them. Every employee wore a name tag that read, "Here to help your dreams come true." The difference between the 2 dealerships became clear quickly. At Jordan Motors, there were no high-pressure sales tactics, no judging people by how they dressed or what they looked like, just honest answers and fair prices. "Young man," an elderly woman said to Michael one afternoon, "I went to 5 dealerships before coming here. You're the only ones who treated me with respect." Michael smiled. "That's our #1 rule, ma'am. Everyone deserves respect." As weeks passed, something amazing happened. Jordan Motors wasn't just selling cars. It was changing how people thought about car buying. Families started driving from other cities just to shop there. The local news did stories about the Jordan Motors difference. Meanwhile, across the street, Larry's lot got quieter and quieter. His flashy signs advertising huge deals looked sad next to Jordan Motors' simple, elegant displays. His salespeople started leaving to apply at Michael's dealership. One day, Michael was giving a tour to a group of business students when his assistant rushed up. "Mr. Jordan," she whispered, "you need to see this." She handed him a letter. Tatifi was from the bank that handled Larry's business loans. As Michael read it, his face grew serious. "Is everything okay?" one of the students asked. Michael folded the letter carefully and put it in his pocket. "Sometimes," he said, "life gives you a chance to make a choice. You can choose to hurt someone who hurt you, or what?" the student asked. But Michael just smiled that mysterious smile again. He pulled out his phone and started making calls. Across the street, Larry Thompson sat alone in his office, staring at a stack of unpaid bills. His phone had been ringing all day. The bank wanted answers he didn't have. A knock on his door made him jump. His secretary, one of the few employees who hadn't left yet, poked her head in. "Mr. Thompson, there's someone here to see you." "Tell them to go away," Larry growled. "We're closed." "Sir," she said, "I really think you should take this meeting." Larry looked up, ready to shout. But the words died in his throat when he saw who was standing in his doorway. Michael Jordan stood there, holding a folder much like the one he'd brought to Lucky Larry's 6 months ago. But this time, something was different. This time, Michael wasn't here to buy a car. He was here to make Larry an offer that would change both their lives forever. Larry Thompson stared at Michael Jordan sitting across his desk. The roles were reversed from 6 months ago, but this time, no security guards were coming to throw anyone out. Most of Larry's security team worked for Jordan Motors now. "Why are you here?" Larry asked, his voice barely a whisper. "Come to celebrate my failure?" Michael opened his folder and laid out some papers. "No, sir. I'm here to offer you a job." The clock on Larry's wall ticked loudly in the silence that followed. Outside, the sun caught the Jordan Motors sign across the street, making it sparkle. "A job?" Larry's face turned red. "Is this some kind of joke? After what I did to you?" "Mr. Thompson," Michael said calmly, "do you know what my mother told me the day after you threw me out of here?" He straightened his tie, the same one he'd worn that day. She said, "Michael, hate is too heavy a bag to carry through life." Larry's hands trembled as he reached for his coffee mug. "I don't understand." "I'm offering you a chance to be our Classic Cars division manager," Michael explained. "You know the luxury car business better than anyone. 20 years of experience, that's valuable. But first, you need to learn something more important than selling cars." "And what's that?" Larry asked. "How to see people for who they are, not what they look like." Michael pushed the job offer across the desk. "The position includes a 6-month training program. You'll work with every kind of customer. You'll learn from our team members, people you might have overlooked before. And you'll understand why Jordan Motors has become the most successful dealership in the state." Larry picked up the papers with shaking hands. His eyes grew wide at the salary figure. "This is generous," he admitted. "It's fair," Michael corrected. "Just like every customer deserves fair treatment." Larry's eyes filled with tears. "I don't deserve this. That day, what I did, I've been ashamed ever since. Every time I see that video on the news, I can't believe that was me." Michael leaned forward. "Mr. Thompson, everyone deserves a second chance, but they have to earn it. Are you ready to earn yours?" The morning sun streamed through the window, lighting up the empty showroom of Lucky Larry's luxury cars. The space that had once been filled with shiny vehicles and bustling salespeople now felt like a museum of old mistakes. "Yes," Larry whispered. Then louder, "Yes, I am." 3 months later, the local news ran a different kind of story. The headline read, "From rivals to partners, how Jordan Motors is changing more than just the car business." The camera showed Larry Thompson wearing a Jordan Motors name tag, helping an elderly couple choose their first luxury car. His smile was genuine, his handshake warm and welcoming to everyone who walked through the door. In his office, Michael watched the news story with his mother. "You know what, Mom?" he said. "That black Mercedes I wanted to buy that day, I'm glad I didn't get it." His mother squeezed his hand. "Why's that, son?" Michael looked out his window at the busy showroom floor, where people of all backgrounds worked together, helped customers together, and proved that success comes in many different packages. Because sometimes the car you want isn't as important as the road it leads you down. That evening, as the sun set behind Jordan Motors, Michael and Larry walked out to the parking lot together. Larry stopped by a familiar black Mercedes, the same model Michael had tried to buy all those months ago. "I was wrong about so many things," Larry said. "But you know what I was most wrong about?" "What's that?" Michael asked. "I thought I was in the car business," Larry smiled. "But thanks to you, I learned what we really sell here." "And what's that, Mr. Thompson?" Larry gestured at the happy customers driving off in their new cars, at the diverse team members heading home after another successful day. at the community that had been transformed by one young man's choice to build rather than destroy. "We sell second chances," Larry said, "and those are worth more than all the luxury cars in the world." Michael smiled, remembering that long walk home 6 months ago. Sometimes the best revenge isn't revenge at all. Sometimes it's showing people a better way forward. As they walked to their cars, Larry asked one final question. "Michael, why did you really give me this chance?" Michael thought about his father's words about rivers finding new paths, about his mother's lessons on carrying hate, about all the people who had judged him before knowing him. "Because, Mr. Thompson," he said, "success isn't just about proving people wrong. Sometimes it's about helping them become right." And with that, they drove home under a sky full of stars. Two men who had learned that the greatest journeys aren't measured in miles, but in the changes of the human heart. What happens next? Want more stories about the power of compassion, overcoming judgment, and the strength it takes to make a difference? Click on the screen to watch the next story that will inspire you to see the world and each other in a whole new way. Don't miss it.